And I just figured out why I wasn't on the screen. How are you doing? Oh my goodness. Oh wow. It has been a hectic day. And I hope you had an amazing, amazing day. I have had to pivot and swivel and shift and tap dance this entire day. I've had one of those days that I had built in a nap and I couldn't even get my nap in. That's what kind of day I had. But you know what we do? We persevere. We press on. We keep it going. We keep it motivated because that's what we do in this community. We keep it moving. Now, I need for somebody to tell me that they can hear me because it'll just be my luck to be talking and have a video out there with no sound. So if you can hear me, drop it in the chat. I can hear you. Because I don't want to talk and just be dropping gems and I'm dropping it into the great beyond. So, welcome to day 4 of Contracting and Business Week. I am the host, Luciana Turner. I am the founder of the LT&A Consulting Group. We are a government contracting, consulting, and training firm servicing businesses who have been in operations for 2 to 3 years, seeking to integrate government contracting into their business, or businesses who have been operating in the government space who wish to implement compliance services into their businesses. I personally have 20 plus years in government contracting, working in compliance, answering audits, DCAA audits in particular, disclosure statements, incurred cost submission, such the like. We are in what they call low hanging fruit season. What does low hanging fruit season mean? I'm glad you asked. Low hanging fruit season is that time of the year where we're in the fourth quarter of the government year. And that is when the government is obligated to either spend or obligate its budget. The government is funny in that each department is required to spend all of its money. They are not rewarded for saving. They are actually penalized for saving any money. So budget directors are at the point where they have to spend or obligate all of their funds. And the difference being, spending all of their money means they have to award a contract. That's how they spend their money. Obligating their money means it's a little different when they obligate their money because it is awarding a contract, but it isn't awarding a contract. Obligating their funds means they are attaching that money to a contract vehicle. That is the difference between obligating their money and spending their money. Somebody's going to say that doesn't make any sense. I can't go into that in depth on this program because we'll be here for a total hour because I actually kind of split a hair there and that hair needs to be defined a little more. And that's fine. I got the message and that's fine. So, we're splitting a hair. So, that's good. So that's the whole thing with low hanging fruit season and obligating and spending funds. So now somebody is also saying, but this is July. What do you mean it's fourth quarter? The government run off of a fiscal year and not a calendar year. And a fiscal year is when the year does not start January 1st. A fiscal year starts at any point during the year but January. That's at any time other than January. So the government year starts October 1st, which means we're in the fourth quarter. So the government year starts October 1st. So that's why we're in low hanging fruit season. So the seasoned government contractors are in proposal writing and networking fury. They are driving themselves crazy, writing the mail, meeting the mail. New contractors, however, are trying to take advantage of the fury. They're trying to latch on to the low-hanging fruit season. Some are able to successfully grab hold of some contracts. Others are getting frustrated by the process. And that is because, as I said the Monday night, you have your priorities out of order. I would say low-hanging fruit season isn't the time for you unless you have an ultra-aggressive strategy and an ultra-aggressive plan. Low-hanging fruit season is the time for you to make connections and the time for you to network. It's difficult for a totally new contractor, pick up what I'm putting down. It is difficult for a totally new contractor to come into low-hanging fruit season and win these ultra-large contracts. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying it's difficult. And what often happens is contractors come into low-hanging fruit season and they don't yield the results they believe they should yield because they get caught up in the hoopla of low-hanging fruit season. And then when they don't get the results that they feel they should get, they get discouraged. And it's I don't want anyone to get discouraged in the process. I want people to understand that there is a process to the process. And when you try to circumvent the process, it can lead to frustration. And the frustration is bad. And that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, somebody is back ending me. So that's what I'm saying. So low-hanging fruit season for new contractors is a time for you to network. It is time for you to meet with those contracting officers and ask those questions that you need to ask. And there's a series of questions, and I'm going to give you the one question every new contractor needs to ask. I didn't get the name. I'm going to just go ahead and say it out here. I didn't get the name. That's what I'm asking you. Uh, the one question you need to ask is what need is that's not getting you know what? The one question every contractor should ask their contracting officer is what need is not being met by your current contractors? I'm sorry, I'm getting messages on the back end and it was distracting me a little bit because I wasn't picking up what they were putting down because I was just being real slow tonight. Real slow. You have to excuse me. Like I said, I didn't get my nap, so I'm being real slow. So tonight is Ask Me Any Question night. And we literally, the person that was originally supposed to interview me, something happened. I pray that she's okay. And we have somebody standing in for her. And they were telling me her name. And I wasn't getting, they was telling me her name. And they was telling me her name. And I said the name in the live. So I wasn't picking up. They were telling me that that was her name. I was confusing myself. So you can go ahead and laugh at me because I have to laugh at myself with that. So, transparency moment. If you can't laugh at yourself in business, you will crack up. You have to laugh at yourself. And I'm just sharing with you because this will happen. You will go through things and you have to pivot on the dime. Well-laid plans have to have contingencies in it. Things happen. Your partner that you've been partnering with, you've been planning with, something will happen and that partner drops out. Do you have a contingency plan? Do you have the ability within your network to reach out to somebody and say, I need a stand-in? Now, I am blessed that I have made new connections and that within those new connections, I was able to reach out and they reached out and got a fill-in for tonight. So that's what's going on the back end. And that's why I'm seeing the little flubbly jubbly. So while the person who's interviewing me is getting the details and logging in, and you know what, if you have questions for me, you can drop them in the chat. So those on my email list were able to submit them earlier, and those are the questions that the interviewer has and that will and ask me. Those who have questions on the live can drop them in the chat, and we'll pull those questions and integrate those questions in along with the questions that the interviewer has. So, and while we're waiting for her to pop in, the pre-sale for my book, Keys to Government Contracting, opened yesterday. I am so excited for that. It was a long time coming. Yay, me. I basically compiled the most frequently asked question that I've received over the years. And I said, okay, what is the best way I can put this together and in a blueprint that will help somebody that's entering government contracting? So there's actually going to be a series called Before the RFP, Creating a Successful and Scalable Contracting Business. This is the first book in that series, Keys to Government Contracting. So pre-sales for that book opened yesterday. So if you want to scan the QR code It will take you to the website where you can get additional details about that book. I'm excited for the book. Official sales of the book will open October 1st to coincide with the government fiscal year. That was a long time in the making. I'm excited. There will be a workbook to go along with the book on the official launch of the book goes. So there will be the book and a workbook, but right now the book is open for pre-sale. So I do know one question that has been submitted that was inboxed to me that I want to answer for you guys is, for new contractors or new business and government contracting, what should you focus on? Networking, connections, relationships? If you're not ready to bid, what should you focus on? I would say building connections. If you feel that you're not ready to bid on government contracts, I would say you should work on building your network. And the way you should prepare for that is to attend networking events. Go to the government contracting events. I'm going to tell you to go to both the free and the paid events. Why am I telling you to go to both? Because there are two types of people at both events. The free events give you some of the foundation work and the basics. However, the contracting officers that are responsible for administering the contracts and some of the higher level primes and the companies that you really want to network with are at the paid events. I mean, it just is what it is. So you want to attend both types of events. And as a new contractor, you want to get in the habit of paying for being in the room. It just is what it is. So now my interviewer has appeared, Miss Patience Clark. She was chosen to interview me this evening. So I'm going to bring her on screen. I want to thank you for joining us this evening at the last minute.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Okay. So, wow, you were really chosen at the last minute. So I just want to thank you for taking time out of your evening for doing this for us.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad to. I'm excited to hear. Glad to be here. So I guess you want me to just go ahead and get started with the questions, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start. Can you talk a little louder? Because I can hardly hear you.
Turn the volume up.
Did I lose her? Did I lose her? While we get the volume together. Okay. While we get her volume together, I just want to finish. I want to finish out that thought.
Try it now.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now. But now you're frozen. Okay. I'm telling you, technology is good when it works. So while we get the technological issues ready, finished, we're going to finish out my thought. So you want to get into the habit of paying for being in the room. And you want to get into the habit of paying for access. And for paying for access. The technical assistance that you're going to need, the contracting, the pricing people, the proposal writers, they're not going to barter. At this level, they're just not going to barter. So you want to be in the habit of, you want to get into the habit of um, gaining access to those people. They're typically in those paid spaces. You also want to get into the habit of attending these networking events so that you can be in the room with these people, because your next contracting partner may be in the room. Your next contracting partner could be the next person that you meet at that next contracting event. That is how you begin the vetting process. It's meeting these people at the event. It's meeting with them during the networking, talking with them over lunch, hearing the types of questions that they're asking during the Q&A sessions. So that's why you want them to be in the room during the events. So are you ready, patients? Okay.
Got that.
All right.
So, I wanted to start out by asking, as start someone who might be starting out in the industry and has a business that's pretty much well established. How would they really start about considering contracting?
How would they start about considering contracts? That's like a loaded question. Can you get a little more specific?
I mean, what would be, for someone who is sort of outside, uh, this they have their own business, but
Mhm.
they don't know necessarily where to start. They know that there is an income stream in contracting. They may have heard about it or some kind of way. Like, what would be the you know, I ask this because a lot of people have, storefront kind of ideas when it comes to business.
Okay.
And so, how do they change their frame of mind when it comes to like contracting? Like, how would that?
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm going to answer that question in two ways. If you're looking to add a stream of revenue to your business, but you don't want to add on services, contracting is something you should consider, because the government buys everything. They even, I use this example because it's extreme, but they even buy clown services when you think about the USO and all that stuff. So the government buys everything. So what you should think about is the lines of services you offer. What do you do? And often people don't think about, what do you do? Line that up with what agencies, and then we're not going to go down the rabbit hole too much on this live. What agencies purchase what you offer? Now, oftentimes people go for the big agencies. I'm going to tell you not to do that initially. Because everybody want to work with DoD. DoD is a mega monster that actually comprises multiple mega agencies. So I want to work with Department of Defense is too vague. Who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with the Army? Well, who in the Army? You have to get specific. Okay, who do you want to work? I want to do civilian type work. Well, who? So what services do you offer? What part of the government do you believe would purchase that service? And then research that part of the government. Is that a good fit? Because oftentimes you think this part of the government would buy your service, and they're really not a good fit. It's this part of the government over here. So I would say you need to do your research. Because I've talked to people who thought the Army would be a good client for them, and at the end of the day, Homeland Security was better. They were better for their company, they were better for their services, and they were better niche for them to get in the door. So getting, researching a better agency for you to start with, and knowing what services that you offer and which services that you want to offer to the government.
Well, so supposedly, my question is this: me personally, I have a real estate. Um, I'm an attorney and I do real estate services.
Hmm.
So, like closings, and I can do commercial real estate. So, I've always been of the mind like, hey, if I'm not really, I don't really necessarily care about who the client is or the customer is, unless they give me a hard time. What do you mean by when you say that, you know, the agency may not be a good fit? Like, what do you mean by that?
Um, some agencies in the government do not like to work with small businesses. It just is what it is.
Mhm.
And there's just because there's some biases, and there's just some agencies have been burned. So it's harder to get in as a prime, as a small business.
Okay.
So you have to know which agencies are small business friendly.
Uh-huh.
It take you longer to get into those agencies. It's not impossible. I have a motto in government contracting: your answers are yes and not yet. So some agencies are going to be a yes, and some agencies are going to be a not yet.
Mhm.
So for the not yet, we're going to put them on the back burner, and we're going to let them slow cook. For the yes, we have a quicker pace for those. Um, so that's what I'm talking about when I make that statement.
Okay. What can a person like me do who is just getting out there contracting? Like, is there a database that I can filter or sort through, or is there something like that that I can use?
The new SAMs, the government has, in its infinite wisdom, and I say that tongue in cheek, has created this new website. It has combined all of their websites into the new SAMs. Now, every government contractor has to register on that website. So we're going to start there. You have to register your company on that website. Now, this is going to be your first test, because when you register on that website, they're going to make sure that your company is compliant once
Okay.
you do that. And I'm prefacing that statement with this, because your state, the IRS, and what you put in SAMs all have to match.
Mhm.
And a lot of people get stopped right there because they forgot when they started their business, they were living at their mama's house and they done moved about 5, 6 times. But they're now doing business out of a real office. And that's the address they register with in Sam's. But they failed a 3-part match. And they can't even get past Sam's. Because Sam's checks and the IRS kicks it back and says this doesn't match. Because IRS still has your mama's address. And you and Sam's under your new address doing business as. And then the state might have another address that you registered with. And Sam says, this is and the Sam's won't tell you why. Sam just kicks you out. You have to figure out why.
Something that you have to update regularly.
You need to make sure and check that everything stays up to date.
Okay.
There's actually a service that you can register with so that when you change your address, you change it in that service, and that service changes all your addresses. I don't have the name right now. I can look it up and share it on the live tomorrow. But it's something that you should just make sure all of your I's are dotted and T's are crossed before you even register.
Okay. So what
But
if
I'm sorry, but to finish answering that question, Sam's has in there a search feature where
okay.
you can look for all of the contracts. They actually rolled in. It used to be called FedBid Ops, Federal Business Opportunities. They
Okay.
rolled FedBid Ops into the new Sam's website.
And it's a search.
Hmm.
Probably like there's a filter or something like
There's a filter, but you still need to know who you want to work with. Or you need to know the NACE code that your services fall under. Or you need to know the PSC code that your services match to. So you still need to do the prerequisite research
yeah.
to know the service that you're selling in order to do the search. Because you can get in there and get frustrated real hard if you haven't done your research.
Right. Is search something that I can just perform on the agency site and, whatever they may have the opportunities, I don't know if they have a lot of procurement opportunities on the site or not, or if it's just, you know,
You can search stuff on the agency website. Yes, each agency lists their procurement opportunities on their website.
okay.
Now, I am going to say this. Um, there are these are all the free. These are all the free stuff. You can go on FedBid Ops. You can go on the agency websites. Every agency also lists what they call a forecast. So if
For
you go a forecast,
forecast, okay.
yeah, it's what they anticipate they're going to purchase this year.
Okay. Okay.
So if you go in there now, you'll have all their contracts that are running now, when they end, if they intend to recompete or not, their new contracting efforts. So that's what they're forecasting for the next, they usually do like 5 years.
Okay.
All of that is on each agency's website.
Oh,
So they put that out there. That information is as good as it is until the budget comes out. So
mm,
you constantly want to refresh that information. So if you download it now and then download it again in October when the new fiscal year starts, there may be some changes. So you don't want to operate solely off of stale information.
Okay. Now, here's my next question that leads me to. So there's the forecasting. Does the
Mhm.
forecasting give like an amount that they like a pre-budget, like what they're estimating they're willing to spend on these services, or no?
Yes, there are dollar amounts attached to everything because every agency has a budget,
Okay.
which is why you have to constant. That's why you don't want to, if you download it now, you want to re-download it.
Mhm.
Now, if it's attached to a contract, I'm not going to make that statement. So let me back up off of that. That's why you want to re-download it because a contract can get extended and a budget increased. A contract can get defunded and the dollars reobligated, which is the government's way of saying they took the money from one place and put it somewhere else. So that's why you want to make sure you check that forecast.
So you check the forecast,
Hmm.
the budget's out, and then you're saying re-download it to make sure that the funds haven't been
Shifted.
shifted to
Yes,
someone.
because today their funding initiative might be one way, but
Uh huh.
something can happen between now and October, and their shift might switch.
Okay.
There might be something major that goes on in the government or something major that goes on in the agency, and they do a total about face, and their spending changes. Well, that changes their contracting. So their dollars are also going to switch, or how they spend their dollars is also going to switch.
Okay. Can that happen? Like, let's say you get approved, or you go all the way through the process.
Your volume.
Oh, can you
Oh,
hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Mhm.
Apologize. It's out. So sorry.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Face ID. So sorry. Um. So if you go through the process, this is what my question was. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was had to do with let's say I moved through the process and I've done everything right and I've been approved and it's set to start in an early date or a date certain. Can there be a reallocation even after that?
Yes.
Okay.
You can go through the whole bid process, be awarded the contract, and something happens and the contract get defunded.
Wow.
You can go through the process, be awarded the contract, start work on the contract, and something happens and there's a stop work issue on the contract. It doesn't happen all the time. And usually, if there's a stop workage, there's a reason, and they'll tell you the reason. And if they issue a stop work and they don't tell you the reason, you are within your right to demand a meeting and be told the reason. Now
Oh.
that's when you need to stand up and say, I need to know why. And there are certain rules in place that protect you as a contractor. And there are certain rules in place as a small business contractor that was Congress in this infinite wisdom put in place to protect you.
Mhm.
So yes, if you're ever issued a stop workage, even with a stop workage, you're usually given 30 to 60 days to ramp down, to issue your final bills. Sometimes they switch in contract types. So they're going to reissue the contract. They might start off as a fixed price and they have to go to cost plus. Sometimes they start off as cost plus and go to a fixed price. There's a lot of things that go into that. So a contract being defunded isn't necessarily a bad thing. It
Okay.
can mean several things. So getting that stop workage, don't panic. It
Mhm.
just means you need to pick up the phone and hold a conversation.
Okay. Okay. So then, is there contained in the contract like a bill of rights or something like that, or that
No,
kind of explains that? No.
no, no. No. What now? Your contract can contain language in the event of, and so depending on the size of your contract, what how long your contract is. And in the event of something, it'll tell you some things. But all of the if ands and ors and stuff, there's if your contract is covered by bound by FAR is referenced, and there's some clauses that will say FAR is referenced, but you have to go to FAR on your own and look up FAR. Your contract will say if once you've won a certain number of contracts and your revenue is at a certain level, then your company becomes CAS covered. Then
Mhm.
CAS, which is the cost accounting standards, your company becomes CAS covered. Then you are bound by the cost accounting standards. You are obligated to go look those cost accounting standards up. That's when you have to know your role and understanding your obligations. You're a government contractor. Nobody's holding your hands. You have to understand the rules of the road. Constant education is up to you. Those are the responsibilities you took on when you said, I want to work with the government.
Wow.
Certain things on the RFP, the request for proposal, the RFP is included in the contract. And it
Okay.
says in the RFP that this document is a part of the contract.
Uh huh.
A lot of people don't realize that. So even though when you sign that contract document, you may never see the RFP again. Somewhere in the RFP, it says this is a part of the official contract document.
Mhm.
So I wrote the RFP. People like to throw it away. You better not. That is a part. That is a part, and the, that is a part of your contract.
Wow.
So you'll be off over here, la 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 la. Something happens, and somebody's gonna say, "Well, the RFP told you, huh?
Do
Well,
that.
you better pull it out."
Yeah.
That RFP follows.
Right. It's
So that's a part of your contract,
wow. Okay. Okay.
which is why there's more to government contracting than writing a proposal.
Mhm.
There's a lot of foundation work, getting in the rooms and attending all of these events. And, I even the event I'm having in October, I didn't want to call it a conference. It really should be a seminar. But it's like, what do you call it? It just being in the rooms and going to the trainings in the professional development. Um, Having a lawyer, a contracting lawyer,
Wow.
because there are government contracting attorneys that deal with government contracting law
Mhm. Mhm.
that you should know. Having that, as my coach calls it, a bench that you can refer to,
Mhm.
because that happens. People want to talk. I introduce myself at events. I'm a compliance officer. Oh, I don't need you. Yes, you will. When DCA knocks on your door and you sitting there and they're telling you you have to give all this money back, plus the penalties and interest, and government math is worse than Common Core, because to them 2 + 2 is 275, and you sitting there like, huh?
It has.
Yeah,
Right.
you need to know me because you want to keep every dollar that you earned.
Wow.
But then, because as a taxpayer, you're like, yeah. As a business owner, you're like,
Right.
You have to, and when as a taxpayer, you like, okay, they're doing their job. As a business owner, you're like, but I got to pay my payroll. I have to. So you kind of you're sitting on both sides, because now you see how you, because as a taxpayer you're over here, but as a business owner, as a contractor, you're like, all these rules don't make any sense. But now flip over here as the taxpayer, you want to see your tax dollars protected. How the government is it
Being a good
makes sense.
officer of the money. Yeah. I get.
Yeah. So the rules make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I just worry, like, you know, yeah, I can see why a lawyer would be really important, because if you start doing work on something and then everything gets paused because now I have to pick up the phone and get involved into, and hopefully it's a very simple matter, but you know, if I've invested time, energy, and funds towards this contract, I'd be a little concerned.
Well, it's very rare. I've seen things get litigated in the government contracting space. I don't know if I should say that or not. I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. Um, when things get litigated, I had the privilege, if you want to call it that, of sitting in the room. When I was in industry, I worked for a multi-billion-dollar company.
Hmm.
And when they sat down to decide if they was going to litigate something, I mean, it was big dollars.
Hmm.
The decision that went into whether or not they were going to litigate the issue, um, it was a weighty decision.
Hmm.
And they had the money to tie it up in litigation. And matter of fact, one of the people was like, well, if we want to be petty, we could just sue just for the sake of suing. And they had the dollars to do it.
Hmm.
And I said all that to say this. People in government contracting don't tend to sue for the sake of it.
Okay.
With the new changes in the bid protest laws, because there used to be a tool that they would protest something just to get a piece of the pie. And with the change in the rule that makes it, if you lose, you have to suck up all the costs, it stopped that. Because the bid protest board recognized that. They was just protesting to slow down the process so that they could get a piece of the contract. And they was like, okay, we're going to stop all this. If you lose, you have to eat everybody's legal fees.
Oh, wow.
So they stopped all of that. So people who protest a bid, they really see it. They really see that there's an issue.
Wow.
There was when they made that rule change, the bid protest dropped. I actually saw a study on it. Um, I wished I had pulled it out. I wish I knew that question was going to get asked. I would have pulled it out.
Wow.
So there's not a lot of litigation in the government space. It's really contract law. It's really boring stuff that you see somebody call an attorney for.
Well, that's interesting. So, is it because often is it? I don't know how to put this. If you do too much protesting, you get on somebody's government bad list. is this?
Well, because it's expensive
Okay.
and it delays the process.
Hmm.
The whole procurement process is lengthy as it is.
Okay.
And because there's built-ins to make sure the process is fair.
Hmm.
So then here you come along with your sour grapes protesting the bid. So they have to convene a board to review all the bids to make sure it was fair. And then it's just like, so then you tying up the whole process again because you just mad because you didn't win like a little toddler. It's expensive.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
why they made the change. And what used to happen was they would do the bid protest
Hmm.
and then make backdoor deals. Be like, look, we'll drop our protest if you give us a percentage of the contract.
Wow.
And that's really what would happen. And like I said, people noticed the pattern, and there was one company that was a particular offender, and it was like, no, we're gonna stop all this. Um, and they made that change to the rule, and that change to the rule was made, before I left corporate. So that change, the bid protest rule, was made about 6, 7 years ago.
Oh.
So just like they made a change to a FAR change to protect small businesses, where they can't bid you as a subcontractor and not give you any work. So a lot of changes were made to, add integrity to the process, to make sure people are living up to their responsibilities, to make sure that if I say, as I'm a prime, a large prime, I don't want to call any names, and I'm awarding you a 10% or 13% of the contract, I am really giving you 13% of the contract. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not pulling a bait and switch and saying I'm awarding you 13% so that I can say on paper that I gave you money, you an award, but I'm really going to switch it out and give all the work to somebody else.
Mm.
Unless I can demonstrate you can't perform the work. So there are a lot of assurances built into the system to ensure that everybody is getting their fair shake. What I caution small businesses on is making sure you can do the work.
And then, so that's interesting because I would think that anybody who is pursuing a contract knows that they've got to do the work. But if you get to the point where, okay, obviously I've underbidded myself, and this is more, than I'm going to go finish the sector, go bankrupt. Is there a means to come back to the table?
Well, I'm gonna go here. If you underbid, the government won't even award to you.
Oh, really?
There's a price range that the government knows that this work can be done for.
Okay.
So if they look at your price and you're not within that range, they won't award to you. One, they know you don't know what you're doing. Um, Two, because they don't want to award this contract again. So if you're not within that price range, they know that you're not a suitable company. You're not going to be around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to rebid the work. The government is risk averse, and your pricing shows that you're high risk. That's why I tell people when they keep talking about get out there and bid low. No, you don't. This is not bad. I was getting ready to be politically incorrect. This is not the swap meet. We're not doing low bids.
Wow.
You know what I mean? No. You're supposed to come in and bid competitively. That's it. Period. So if it's $150 to do the work, it's $150 to do the work. Don't come in there talking about I can do it for $70. No, you can't. No. Because the government already knows it costs $140 to do it. So $150 is within range. So they're gonna look at your $70 bid and be like, mm-mm.
But what if
you're not even gonna get awarded.
But what if it's still not enough? What if you feel like, okay, I'm glad I got the award, but I still feel like this is still not enough.
Now, if your burn rate is excessive, there's two things that could be going on. You either underbid or the government underestimated its need.
Right.
Now, if the government messed up, you're supposed to be tracking your burn rate. And I'm going to stop it right here and say, if I'm using terminology nobody on this live understands, you need to be in the room in October. But if your burn rate is higher than the government stated their needs are, you should be tracking that. So if you have a 1-year contract and you are 6 months into the year and you've burned through 60% of your budget, you should be going back to the government and saying, we need to meet. We're on track to go through 60% of the budget before we are halfway through this contract. So we need to reassess the budget based upon the needs you stated. And our estimate is, now, if you're a good contractor, you should have known that when you bid it. And you should have stuck something somewhere in the contract that pointed that out to the government. Or you could have saved that for when you won the award and said, now, I noticed in the beginning that this budget is insufficient.
Oh, you have the space to do that.
You have the space to do that after the award.
Okay.
And once, then see, that goes back to the obligation of funds and the re-obligation of funds and the awarding of task orders and all that other stuff. Now we're getting into advanced contracting and we go into a whole other stuff. Now we're going into other kinds of strategies and some other stuff, because nothing stops you once you have a contract from going back to the government and saying, we see, we notice,
right,
we observe.
Yeah, we observe,
because now you're being a good steward,
right,
and you're demonstrating to the customer that you're somebody that they should do long-term work with. The government also don't like working with strangers, which is why you see them awarding contracts to the same contractors.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes it hard, I would think.
However, which is why in the beginning of the live, I said during low-hanging fruit season, while you're doing your research, you should be talking to the contracting officer saying, what are your current contractors not doing that you would like to see them do? Not too many people are asking that question.
Where do you get the space to ask that question?
Every agency has a small business liaison officer.
Okay.
And this is something I'm gonna say this, and I'm getting ready to step on a whole lot of toes. A lot of small businesses want to freebie their way into government contracting. Honey, you better pay some money to get into these rooms with these contracting officers, because the ones you need to talk to are not in the free spaces. The ones with the buying dollars, 90% of the time, are not in the free spaces.
What do you mean?
There are a lot of government events. Some of them are free, some of them are paid for.
Okay.
What you will find is a lot of the small businesses, and I understand some of these events are costly. Because I know when I started out, I was looking at some of the prices like of the events, and like, but the the connections are in those spaces,
Okay.
and you have to get into the habit or get into the practice of being in the spaces with the people that you want to be around. So this year, I'm looking at events for next year. Like, I'm hosting an event in October. I'm hosting an event September of next year. I'm having people in the space next year. You're not going to find in a lot of free spaces. So if you don't want to pay $15.95 to get into a space to learn advanced leadership, advanced selling, advanced contracting, if you don't want to pay $19.95 to learn advanced contracting skills, to learn how to go back to the table and negotiate, then you're not going to pay for a contracting officer. You're not going to pay the $200,000 it's going to take for you to win that $2 million contract. It's all hand in hand. You're not going to, it's a mindset shift that has to take place. And a lot of people are trying to go into government contracting with this, well, if you'll write my proposal, I'll mop your floor. And I'm being facetious, but not by much mentality. And it doesn't work in this space. You know, I've had people come to me wanting me to do work for them, talking about, if I win, I'll pay you a percent of the, it doesn't work that way in this space. You know, so it's, and then I'm sitting here and listening to the conversation, like, you said that out loud. And you didn't, and now after you said it, it still made sense. And I'm not making fun of or making light, but I'm saying there has to be a mindset shift in business, period, but especially in government contract. There has to be a shifting of the mind.
I would think that if you're talking about a percentage, I would think that the money would have to be allocated where the money would go. Like, how many?
It's actually illegal in government contracting anyway.
Yeah. Right. How would you even be able to do that?
You can't. It actually says it in the RFP.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, I can't imagine how can you even get away with that.
Yeah, it actually states in the RFP, and then we're going to have to close this out. You know, I can talk about government contracting all night, but it actually states in the RFP that you cannot bill the cost for writing or winning a contract to the contract.
Well, good. That's good.
And so that's the first that, you know, and I said it the other night, people are out of order. And in government contracting because they're going into the government space. They shouldn't be doing it, period. But they're going into the government space, trying to do things they do in the business world, doing, trading services for services.
Mm-hmm.
No. And it doesn't work.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot tonight.
Well, I hope so.
I really came away with a lot of information. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem. And thank you for being my last minute stand in.
Well, I hope I was a good interviewer.
Oh, you was good. I enjoyed the questions. So, but thank you for stepping in and standing in. And have a good evening, rest of your evening.
You too. Good night.
Have a good night. Wow, that was a great conversation. We went just a tad bit over time. So come back and join us tomorrow evening at 6:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll talk about ethics with our next guest, Minister Janet Williams, for the continuation of Contracting and Business Week. This is your host, Luciana Turner, saying good evening, and I will see you on tomorrow. If you are interested in joining us for the Contractor and Business event, scan the QR code. There are payment options available. The event is $15.95. It takes place here in Charlotte, North Carolina, October 5th and 6th. I just posted the preliminary agenda last night. I am teaching 2 concepts from my book that was just, the pre-sale started last night. And I'm teaching 2 concepts from the book at the conference in October. I think it's amazing to be in the room. The government contracting process can be a little daunting, but the reward is worth going through the process and going through the steps. Should you have any questions prior to the conference, you can submit an email to us. The email address is on the page, but it's contact@LT&A Consulting Group.com, or you can submit an inbox message on any of the streaming platforms. Again, I'm signing off for the evening. Have an amazing evening. Remember, a stressed mind cannot create. Take time to decompress, relax, spend time with yourself, your family, take a walk, read a book, and attack your problem the next day, refreshed and renewed. And I will see you tomorrow evening for the next installment of Contracting and Business Week.